You're like, no, you're dealing with people in tons of traumatic situations, different walks of life, and even your story. If you feel like you want to give back and you want to help out in your community, look up a local, find your Salvation Army, because that stays there. It's not going out to somewhere and getting shipped back in. It stays where you're at.
Yeah. And so she was really keen on, you need to finish. No, this was clear as day. It wasn't audible.
That's not Jesus if he doesn't want you to go to college.
That part, right?
It's like,
that's what she said.
This is the Lord's work.
Right?
Aware.
No new trick.
I'm comfort. Like, I'll watch the same show 1,000 times because I like it. I don't know what else I like. Right?
Grandpa Joe.
Hey. Welcome to the Cam and Joe Show. My name is Joe Steele with my good friend Cameron.
What's going on, big dog? Happy Friday, man.
Dude, I know, man. Always a happy place. So, if it's the first time, hit the like, subscribe, keep up on the bell. Today, we're going to be interviewing an incredible person in our community. He's been involved in many different ways. I'm going to let Cameron take it from here because
you're good. You're good.
Gush.
That was the perfect runway. We'll finish we'll get this plane off the runway here. My good friend, He's a mentor in my life, and he probably doesn't even know that. But my good friend, Major Julius, is with us this morning. He is the head of our local chapter, Yuba-Sutter Salvation Army. He is so involved in everything. It is an aspiration to be this committed to the community and involved as he is. So,
absolutely.
Major, I appreciate you, man. I'm happy you're here, brother.
Thanks for the invite. Glad to be here.
Thank you for being here. I know a good amount about you. I'm sure Joe does as well. But for our viewers, watchers, listeners, those that are chiming in, I want them to get to know you today a little bit more. Right. What you're all about, what the Salvation Army is all about, and then more specifically what the local Yuba-Sutter Salvation Army is all about.
All right,
let's dive in, man.
Sweet. Let's start about myself.
Let's do it.
Where do I start? Goodness, I've actually been a part of the Salvation Army for most of my life.
That's amazing.
My earliest memory was like age 3, the Salvation Army in Stockton, and Sunday school. The Salvation Army is a church, just like God Tidings or Hope Point, and so forth. And so that's where I got my start. But that's where God kept me. We moved away to Tennessee, back to Stockton, to Texas, back to Stockton, and each time we found the Salvation Army. And so, when I was about 6 years old, we came back from Tennessee, and we didn't really have a place to go, And so the Salvation Army put my family up in a motel for the summer, gave us a meal every day for the summer, and helped my mom get into a permanent housing. So. And then the Salvation Army in Stockton has a community center. It's a youth center. So they have a gymnasium. They have music programs, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, all that crazy stuff.
That's awesome.
Or crazy good stuff, actually. Mm-hmm. And so, that's where you can find me. Like, instead of the streets of Stockton, because, Stockton has a bad rap, right?
Yeah.
It has a horrible reputation. But there was something good in Stockton, and that was the Salvation Army. And so that's where you could find me 3 to 4 days a week, including Sundays. And like I said, that's where the Lord kept me and my sister, and kept us on a straight and narrow. In the middle of college, I was going to be a psychologist, live in Seattle, have a nice house, on a lake, all this. I had a plan.
You had it all set.
Went to Fresno State, was working towards that dream, and then I felt God calling me to actually full-time work with the Salvation Army as an officer.
That's awesome.
What did that calling feel like? Was that a, hey, this just feels right, or was he calling you out of something else? What was that?
He was calling me out of where I was headed. I mean, and which was good. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. I was going to be the second or I would have been a third in my family to graduate college. I mean, at that point,
yeah,
eventually I became a graduate. But
sure.
All that to say, and so she was really keen on, you need to finish. Like, no, this was clear as day. It wasn't audible.
That's not Jesus if he doesn't want you to go to college.
That part, right?
I know Jesus. He's all about that degree.
I told her that'll come at some point, just not today.
And that was who? That was your mom.
That was my mom.
That was your mom.
And so I obeyed God.
Major, you're listening to the wrong Jesus.
Come
I
on
know
now.
him personally.
I agree. And I willingly went. And I really didn't want to do this single. But God said, this is what you're gonna do. So I actually ended up breaking up with my girlfriend at the time. It wasn't my wife. And I said, well, we're going to do it single. Because that's what God is telling me. And it's a good thing. It's this thing about obedience to God and just doing this well. Because sure enough, when I get there, I meet eyes with my wife. And she can tell you the whole story. But end of the day, 3 months later, we're dating. That's in November of that year, and then by February of the next year, we're engaged, and then by
November
August
of 1 year, and then wow,
and then by August we were married.
That's amazing.
So within 9 months, we get the whole
let's go.
So 9 months.
Wow.
Hey, 9 months for a baby. Not 9 months to get married.
Yeah, exactly. From locking eyes to being engaged 90 days later.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
You know. Well, when you're in closed quarters, like at a small college campus,
sure.
You see each other every day. The dating process speeds up.
Oh, absolutely, 100%.
She was on the third floor. I was on the first floor. All of our classes were together. Our homiletics class. Somehow we were partnered together. It was kind of meant to be.
I love it, man. I love it.
He went behind the teacher. He's like,
that's what she said.
This is the Lord's work.
Right? Exactly. So midway through college, or the Salvation Army's college, we got married. And in 2003, we were ordained and commissioned and sent out as officers of the Salvation Army. I haven't left California. I've always wanted to get out to Washington, like I said.
Yeah.
Thought, you join the Army, you see the world, but we joined the Army and I get stuck in California.
Here's this wall. Now you're going to see this wall. Oh,
exactly.
Same room.
So I've experienced Northern California, Southern California, and now back to Northern California. And,
I don't know. Northern California feel like two separate states.
No, it is. No.
It is not.
2017, we had left Oceanside, California.
Yeah.
To come to Yuba.
Oh, yeah, bro.
And so it was like night and day. My boss said, that's where you're going. I'm like, but no.
This is not the Lord.
Exactly, right? So
the wrong man.
we do have 2 kids. We have a 20-year-old and an 18-year-old, actually.
Awesome.
Who are with us and have been a part of, they grew up in the ministry and the work of the Salvation Army.
Love it.
And so I love the work of the Army. I am a success story of the Salvation Army.
Bro, that's my favorite part about talking with you, because when you're like, hey, Salvation Army, and it's like, it works. Well, how? Me. It's like, all right, it totally works.
Yeah, I'm not perfect, but at the same time, it's
awesome.
to take my big thing with like ending homelessness, solving poverty, and all of that is starting with the youth, right? I think once you hit adulthood, it's too late. You can.
Sorry, Cameron.
You're right.
I mean, we can heal and so forth, but if we really want to change our community, change the trajectory of certain generations and families and so forth, it has to start with the youth. And so, like I said, it works. It worked for me.
Yeah.
And so I want to do that for others. The Salvation Army is international.
Yeah.
We're literally all over the world. 135 countries around the world.
That's crazy.
And growing. Awesome. And we've been in the United States since the 1880s. Specifically, we've been in Marysville since 1888.
That's
136 years. So 136 years.
So it's one of the OGs.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Like we're a staple right here in the Yuba-Sutter area. We haven't gone anywhere. We don't plan on going anywhere. In fact, that's kind of been our mission, is just to expand the footprint of the Salvation Army. Not for the Salvation Army's sake. And
Sure.
But more specifically, I mean, this could be bragging, but
brag.
Who's better suited to do the work of solving poverty and homelessness, and helping with addiction? Because we do this on a large scale, throughout the world. And so I think Yuba is very lucky to have an organization like the Salvation Army.
Oh, 100%.
And I'm actually just, I feel privileged to have been here 7 years, going on 8 years, because typically officers, we come, we get started, and 3 years later, like, okay, see you later. You're going somewhere else.
Yeah.
Sure.
But
It's like the military. I mean, PCSing out. You're only going to
Literally.
be in any one spot for so long, and then it's like, okay, guys, we're heading to South Korea or Tennessee or North Carolina,
Exactly.
somewhere, San Diego.
Well, I think it speaks to the success as well, because then you're not so focused on the problem. You're now moving on to the next thing, and the next person coming in to fix whatever problem with fresh eyes.
Yeah, sure. What is the timeline? You said 3 years. Is it typically about 3 years that a major will spend in a
it's
certain
typically about 3 to 4 years. That's like I said, the average. And the reason why officers moved, it's various, right? There's retirement, people transitioning to other jobs.
Sure.
There's a lot of factors related to that, or just the needs of that community, you know. And so I like to think that I would come in and do what I'm skilled to do.
Yeah.
Get that local Salvation Army to where it needs to get, and then someone else will come along and take it to the next step, you know.
Sure.
So kind of, that's kind of how it works. But so I've been lucky to be here 7 years, or blessed actually.
Yeah.
Going on 8 years. I'm not sure how much longer. You
Yeah.
know, after year 5, you're kind of like, okay,
I'm
I'm gonna keep my bags packed just in case.
Bro, makes sense.
You know, just have my brief ready just in case my boss calls and says, okay, it's time to go. But no plans as of today, at least, on relocating my wife and I. So
That's amazing, man. So give some stats out there for people. I know you guys feed a lot. I know you help a lot. You could just tell me, like, overarching over the last year, on average, how much you guys are, how many people you're estimating that you feed, how many people you've helped house or helped with homelessness. Just kind of even touch.
Just to speak to the different projects that we have, from this to Depot and everything.
Well, let's start with this. I don't like to lead without a vision.
No,
without a
good.
plan. And so we have locally, we have a vision that has 4 strategies set out for us. That's housing support, food security, youth services, and vocational training. And so everything that we're doing in the last 3 years have been focused on one of those areas. And we've had some really big projects, all the way out to some very small projects. And so I'll start with like the big housing.
Hit with the big one.
That's a big buzz, right? In Yuba-Sutter, homelessness, and how we're solving the homeless issue that we have here. And so we have the Depot Family Crisis Center, which is a family shelter. We have 14 Forward, which is a low barrier shelter for adults only. And then we have Hope Vista, which is bridge housing for families experiencing homelessness. And so we have been, over the last 3 years, and we have been focusing on adding to the breadth of services that we provide there. There's this thing called CalAIM that's come along the way through the state of California. Basically, Medi-Cal is now identified homelessness as a, how do they say, it's like an indicator of health, right? If you're homeless, then you're not in a healthy situation, and ultimately you're not going to do well.
That makes sense.
Or be well.
Which is awesome. Yeah, it's not just you're sick, right?
Yeah, no, for sure.
$80 for sickness.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
And so we're beefing up our services there at those particular centers. We actually, over in 2019, we demolished and rebuilt Hope Vista over in Olivehurst. So we have 8 brand new homes that are there. In that same time, we have purchased some additional land. So we're actually due to break ground on a park just adjacent to that on Riverside Drive for the community, not just for the Salvation Army.
Oh, yeah.
But then also we are aggressively pursuing building 8 more of those homes at a lot just north of that location. So
Adjacent
really excited about that over at Hope Vista. What else? Sorry, I'm getting distracted by
you're good. You're good.
Let's see, food security. That's been a big baby of mine. Meaning, actually, right now, the reason why I was a little late to this interview, is because of our food program. So we finally were able to create a food and nutrition department over here at the Salvation Army, and so. 2 big things. We have our Fresh Choice Food Pantry, which every Friday we have Fresh Fridays. And so it's a big push of, it's an open door market. It's free, We have fresh produce, fresh
Love
meat, milk, all that great stuff.
11 to 1?
9 to 11.
9 to 11.
And we serve about 100 to 150 families a week through that program.
That's on Del Norte.
Right?
That's amazing. Yeah.
And then we have Hope Express. Hope Express, during the pandemic, it was a project. But the community, when it went away, they're like, no, we need it back.
Yeah,
so
bring it back.
We found the funding to make it a program so it can be ongoing. And so Hope Express is where we, the Salvation Army, we have a street outreach team, and they go out 5 days a week, and they serve enough food for 7 days a week to persons experiencing homelessness.
That's incredible.
Whether they're in shelter at 14 Forward or Better Way, or unhoused, like unsheltered, and we usually meet them at either Hands of Hope or the Life Building Center.
Sure.
We serve, our goal every day, it's 200 people a day.
Yeah.
2 meals a day. So 400 meals a day is what we set out. So that's 2,800.
Wow, pretty awesome.
We plan for 2,800 meals a week.
That's crazy.
And it takes a team to dole that out. Now, through all of that in our food services, we were actually through Medi-Cal, through Cal-AIM, we were able to hire a registered dietitian. We've identified that food security is one issue, but then also you have persons experiencing chronic health conditions who, medication is one thing, but food can be medicine, right?
Yeah.
If you're going to solve diabetes, ideally, food is going to be a key determinant of your nutrition, as well as, let's say you have high blood pressure. Food is a determinant of how well you're going to do. So nonetheless, through Medi-Cal, we have a registered dietitian that we can now provide folks a medically tailored meal or a medically tailored grocery bag.
That's awesome.
And so four categories that we're aiming towards is heart-healthy meals or food, diabetes-friendly, vegan, and gluten-free.
That's awesome.
And so that's actually rolling out. We're rolling it as we speak. I'll just say that much. Youth services. Like I said, I'm that product of the Salvation Army's programs for youth. There's a few things here. Not traditionally, year-round, the Salvation Army does programs for youth. During the summertime, we have summer camp. We have a summer camp up in Nevada County, and it's for all of Northern California. And we, the Salvation Army in Yuba, we send about 25 to 30 kids a year to that. I would love to send more, but
sure.
Trying to convince parents to let their kids go. It's a whole nother story. But it's a life-changing experience.
Oh, yeah.
Just to get out in the open air and get away from the city, and just the concerns of life. And a lot of the kids who go to that camp are of low-income, disadvantaged backgrounds. And so it is an amazing opportunity. I was one of those kids who benefited from the Salvation Army Summer Camp Ministry. We also, locally, this year we did a huge back-to-school bash. We collaborated with the Yuba County Office of Ed and Sutter County Superintendent of Schools.
That's awesome.
And for the first time, we did a regional project for that. We served about 4,000 youth, providing them backpacks, haircuts, new clothes. And it was like a community affair of a lot of different agencies coming out to serve the students and getting them started. We have a program that we are working with the Yuba County Office of Ed on. It's called Alcove, the Youth Drop-In Center. Location is escaping my head at the time,
man. No worries.
But it's right off the 20, and the first of its kind in the area. Because my thing when I got here, I'm like, what is there for youth to do? Yeah. Where are they to go? No wonder why they're addicted and pregnant and so forth. Because there's no activities for them, right?
Are they addicted to pregnancy?
Well.
In a way,
right?
In a way.
So with that said, and there's a lot of generational poverty here, a lot of generational addiction here.
Yeah.
And so we're standing alongside of YCOE in that development of it. And so we are a big partner in getting that going. So that's coming soon, actually, sooner than we expect.
Question on that element, because, I mean, you're seeing it. And I think that's like, I mean, everything you're saying is absolutely incredible. And like you were saying, the youth services, and you've mentioned multiple times, the youth are the focus point, because by the time, I mean, I'm setting my ways. I know what I want for breakfast. I know what I want to wear.
No new trick.
I'm comfort. Like, I'll watch the same show 1,000 times because I like it. I don't know what else I like, right?
Grandpa Joe.
But when it comes to that, when you were talking about generational poverty or generational wealth and how that changes concept, or at least what you mentioned in youth programs, can you touch on that a little bit on more the logistic side of that? Because I know I've heard those phrases. You hear it from government officials, you hear it from school boards. But if we have somebody listening to this, it's like, I don't even, why does that even relate? I know, but I'm curious if you break it down a little bit.
Well, I'm a pastor. I preach.
Yeah, man, go for it.
And there's this thing called generational curses, right?
Yeah.
To where it's just passed down from generation to generation. I can look into my own family and look over the generations and just seeing, it was a thing back in the day to get married, actually married, not just get pregnant, but actually married at age 14, 15. And that was just the cycle, right? But the other generational thing I noticed was in my family was addiction. The lack of education and so forth. And in order to change a community, to change a family, someone's going to have to break that curse. Yeah. Someone's going to have to break that cycle. Yep. And that's a difficult one to break because, our first teachers are our parents. Our first teachers are our family and so forth. And we, as a community, we can do our best to change, but if the driving force at home is this, that, or the other, then it's no wonder why we're beating our head against the wall as educators and nonprofit leaders, this or the other, to try to change them. And so my goal is to try to intervene at the earliest as possible to change the trajectory of that person and ultimately that family.
One individual at a time. I mean, because even if somebody is amongst 4, 5, or 6 siblings, every individual that's eventually going to have kids is going to have their own downlines and downlines and downlines and family trees. So if you can intercede and intersect right there from a young age and show them, hey, there is a better way forward.
Right.
But is it going to be that much harder when their parents and their parents' parents and everything else? Yeah, but I mean, a testament to what God can do with somebody who's willing to say yes and to be obedient.
That
to
part.
It. That's
willing to say yes and be
huge.
obedient to that change and so forth. Another example for myself is, I look back over the generations of my family and there was always a broken home, right? Raised by a single woman. And, for me, I didn't want to raise kids in that way. I didn't want to be an absentee father, this side or the other, if I was going to be a father. And so I'm glad the way God just ordained my life. And so I can't see my life raising my kids in any kind of other environment. And my brothers now follow suit more or less. They're involved in their kids' life. My sister doesn't have kids, but my brothers do. And so, one brother's married, the other, I hope they get married at one point, but nonetheless, they've been together for multiple years. And once again, that curse is broken.
Yeah, absolutely.
For this, at least for this generation, right?
100%.
The world doesn't want a family together, right? The world does not want a family together. There's so much God, and there's so much Holy Spirit, if you would, in the synergy of a family, of an active husband and an active wife, active in the lives of their children. There's just so much unity there. So in a world where, I mean, my folks split up at a young age, my dad's parents split up at a young age. It's like, man, am I going to allow myself to just become that
to repeat
again?
That process,
or are we just going to fight like hell, no matter what, to make any marriage, make that happen for not only ourselves and our own peace, but for our children.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, it's I'm going to get theological nerdy really quick because
that's what you're here for.
The Trinitarian belief of God goes into the word perichoresis. Perichoresis meaning the happy dance. So, meaning that Father, Son, Holy Spirit work and give and take in this beautiful dance of always willing to work with each other. There's never a doubt. There's never a fear. There's never an overbearing. It's always within the give and take. And so God being the concept of love in the give and take, the truest form of love and give and take is family. And that's why the 3-in-1 becomes so powerful. So just to your point of what you're saying about the family being so important, it is literally given to us as a description of who God is.
Yeah.
It is in him. the family is the purest expression form of God in the love and harmony within each other.
So to that point, one of the things that my wife and I have done over our years as officers in the Salvation Army is focus on families in our ministry. Because when we first became Salvation Army officers, we were sent to a community in Newark, California. We were responsible for 3 cities: Newark, Fremont, and Union City. And we had no congregation. We were doing food boxes, and that was it. And we're like, wow, we weren't trained to start a new church. This is foreign to us. But what did we know? Prior to becoming officers, we worked with the Salvation Army in youth ministry. And so that's what we did. We started with a vacation Bible school. And then from there, we said, okay, well, we want to attract people who look like us, right? So young families. And so that's what we focused on. And so instead of having church on Sundays, what we started off with was on Wednesdays or Thursdays, we would have family night. Yeah. And so we've carried that over 22 years. And so when we came to Yuba, it was kind of foreign. And so we were responsible for the depot, and we said, well, the Depot Family Crisis Center is about keeping families together, right?
Absolutely.
And so we brought family night to the Salvation Army in Yuba, and immediately, like, our partners with CPS on both sides of the river were like, this is amazing. And the reality of it is our family night, it's simple. Yeah. But the goal of it is to teach families how to be families. Yeah. And particularly families either coming out of parents were coming out of incarceration or coming out of addiction, or, they have a CPS or CWS case. These families are broken. The likelihood of them succeeding is very slim. Yeah. But, we have them for their time, let's say, at the depot. And so every Wednesday, without fail, we assemble the families together, and we start out with a meal. And I tell the parents, some parents have to learn how to have their kids actually sit at a table. And I'm like, well, let's let them be a kid. No. That's not the point of family night. The point of family night is to learn how to sit and be a family. Let's have a conversation, right?
Absolutely.
Let's do some activities together, because a lot of families don't do activities together. So we're going to pull out a craft. We're going to do a game, or we're going to watch a movie, right?
Yeah. Eating together.
And we're going to do it together. What a concept, right?
Yeah. My son usually eats in front of the TV, and my daughter will usually eat back in her. It's like, no, come on.
Exactly. Because once again, we resemble what we do in our own family. You know, we didn't grow up eating at the table together for the most part. But for my family, from day one, even before we got married, every night we were at the table.
I love it.
Even today, and they're 20 and 18 years old, we're at the table.
It's powerful.
It's a beautiful picture.
And so we teach that through a very simple program called Family Night. And it sounds like a simple concept. It is, but it has huge impact.
Oh, yeah.
Well, we're losing the simplicity.
Yeah.
People are losing the simplicity. And it's this natural assumption of, well, I'm a dad now. I've got kids. My dad worked and he did his thing. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to do my thing. And it's like, well, the conversations. Are you having conversations? Well, no, I'm doing my job. They're taken care of. They'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Okay. And there's this natural assumption. Right. Same thing like you were talking about diets. Like a lot of people assume I'm eating food, I'm fine. It's like, you're diabetic. You shouldn't be eating pizza every night. Yep. Sorry, I don't know how to tell you this, right? Mm-hmm. But and having somebody that cares enough to go, hey, let's just talk about it. Let's just go back to the basics. You may already know, and that's fine if you do. But if you don't, here's something you probably didn't know, and we can help you establish a natural way of going about it.
And then giving people prompts. So through Family Night, if you guys are showing, demonstrating directly, hey, this is what we do, kind of watch, and this is why it works. Something that I can't remember if I think I saw it on a podcast.
I lost sound.
Oh, so you don't like me?
I lost sound. I can't. Okay. I can hear you, but I can't hear you through here.
Gotcha. Okay.
So something that I'd seen on a podcast and I fell in love with was sometimes parents. My son is I have a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 1-year-old, right? So conversation you have with a 5-year-old, don't necessarily have with a 3-year-old, and obviously you're not necessarily having with a 1-year-old. But I remember I was in a spot where I wanted to have like some deeper conversations with Beckham about like his day, like what made you sad, what made you happy, stuff like that. We're back on. And I just approach that every night when we're at the dinner table. I'll always say, all right, Beckham, not only how was your day today, but give me an example of something today that made your heart happy, and give me an example of something today, or was there anything today that even made you even a little upset, or your heart hurt or
Yeah.
anything like that, right? Just to give kids and the family an opportunity. And 9 times out of 10, there's nothing that negatively affect them. But when there was, like I remember he was upset the other day when I asked him that question because somebody else got hurt on the playground, and like we were having a conversation at our dinner table about Beckham being upset because somebody else got hurt, and I was just like, oh, like bro, your heart is just so friggin' pure, right? But if you never give the child an opportunity to talk about how they feel, they're never going to learn as an adult how to express how they feel in a society that doesn't really want to hear it.
Come on now.
Right? Ugh. So if we can demonstrate that, not only in our own households, but if you can demonstrate that to a community and show people, hey, it starts with a conversation. It starts with a family. Positively impact families will positively impact communities, states, regions.
Yeah. Well, and that last week we even talked about, and if you haven't, take a listen to it. It's amazing. We talked about intelligence and so this is crazy, and I'm curious your thoughts on this, but they measure somebody's intelligence. 20% is IQ off of pattern recognition and understanding how to kind of problem solve. 80% is emotional intelligence. And because of a lack of emotional intelligence, we're starting to see a decline of natural intelligence because you no longer care. Why would I care? I have no empathy. I have no compassion. And I think that, and this is something that's always amazing, especially with your staff that you guys work with. You guys have a natural amount of emotional intelligence. I've never seen anybody working with or alongside of Salvation Army that was cold.
Yeah.
Or was like, you should do better, and had this assumptiveness, right? And you guys are very open-armed, open-hearted, going, hey, how can we serve you? How can we love you?
Right. So what we do, why we're probably good at that, is we take this approach of like, and you'll hear this buzzword, trauma-informed care.
Yeah.
And we take pride in getting our staff trained in that, and just with the people in the community in which we work with, they come with a lot of baggage. They come with a lot of stuff, a lot of emotions, a lot of illnesses that we can see and illnesses that we cannot see.
Absolutely.
And it's usually the ones that we cannot see that we have to be mindful of. And so we like to, my approach to my staff, and as I train them and teach them, is that, hey, you want to meet someone where they're at. And never try to come above them, but meet them where they're at. And so I know, particularly, let's say working at the depot, you'll come across a family, or sometimes even a young one, but for whatever reason, they're volatile. The smallest thing will just set them off, and they're yelling at you and they're barking at you, this, that, or the other. Easily, you can be triggered as a staff person and try to match them, right? To try to bring them down. And it doesn't work.
No.
At all.
Believe it or not.
What?
And so
matching the crazy is frowned upon.
It's frowned upon, and like I say, it's fruitless because it's not going to help. And so I say, whoa. You got to remember your training, remember who you are, but remember they're human. And understand that there may be other reasons why it's causing them to behave and act out in this way. And so meet them here. If you want to get them here, you need to meet them here and then stay there. And so that's something that I'm big on in all of the work that we do.
Well, it shows, man.
Yeah.
It totally shows.
It absolutely does.
What are I know you're filling in a lot of other spots. You guys have been doing so much in the community. What's a future thing you're super excited about? Something that's coming up that you're like looking for? Because I know
KKO.
Well, there's that.
Okay.
That's an event. So
all right.
if you want to go in an event,
go ahead. Hey.
We have so the Salvation Army. There's no other organization. I just learned this. Well, maybe I didn't learn it. I just was reminded of it. Maybe there's no other organization in the world that is synonymous with Christmas like the Salvation Army.
I love it.
Maybe Coca-Cola. That
Polar
brand.
Bears.
Polar Bears, right?
Yeah.
Santa Claus. Come to find out, right?
But you're right.
It's the Salvation Army because there's, you hear that silver bell, right?
Yeah, you hear
that sound,
ringing.
silver bell is from about the Salvation Army ringing that bell.
I love it.
It's like the intro to the movie Christmas Carol. You literally hear like bell ringing.
And that bell
synonymous.
ringing actually started in California. It actually started in Oakland, California, the port of Oakland.
Wow.
Right? And there was this captain of the Salvation Army who wanted to raise money to provide Christmas for those in need.
Yeah.
And so he had this huge crab pot. and he set it out in the port and he collected money. And so what that has done is particularly throughout the United States, there's some other countries that do it now, but we have our Red Kettle campaign. We do it at Christmas time, and it raises money so that we can provide Christmas first.
Yeah.
And then hopefully raise enough money then to help our services throughout the year.
Sure.
If we don't do well at Christmas time, through giving, then it's likely we won't have a good year. So it's a barometer.
Gotcha.
For what's to come.
Yeah.
And so we're hoping that 2024 to 25 will be a great year for that. And so the kickoff of that season is the Red Kettle Kickoff, or locally we call it Rock the Red Kettle.
Love it.
And this is, I want to say, the 12th one that Yuba-Sutter has had. And we used to have it actually here in this building.
Yeah. Oh, nice.
We had a breakfast here at Glad
First
Tidings.
one I ever went to was here.
Which was great. Huge fanfare. Pandemic happened. We ended up in the Kmart parking lot for 2 years.
I remember that conversation.
And then my board said, never again. So,
but that was because the first year we did it, the rain was blowing at us sideways, and we were losing tarps, and we were outside like, what are we doing?
Yeah, no, for sure.
But it worked.
But hey, Jerry Handy and 4G came in with the tri-tip, and it ended up working out.
I love
it.
it.
2 years in a row.
We did.
Actually.
Yeah. Yep. That was close.
So very grateful.
That was close.
Then out of that, we had the Lafayette Hard Rock was up and running.
Yeah.
And so someone said, let's have it there. And so we've had our Hard Rock now. This is the third year.
Nice.
Super excited to have them partner with us on that. Last year we raised the most money ever for our KO. It was $249,000 roughly.
That's amazing.
Right? Quarter mil.
I loved it. Now we're looking to, my goal, I can't be ambitious. Now, last year was a little of an anomaly. We had one large check of $149,000 roughly.
Thank you, Joe, by the way.
Yeah, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So with that said,
my kid's not going to
Coffee
college.
shop's
He's
balling.
going to be joining Salvation Army, so it all works out.
If you notice that the prices at the coffee shop went up this year.
Right. But particularly for that particular event, our goal this year is $150, and I think we're about $60,000 raised so far, and that's going to be on November 8th at the Hard Rock.
That's
right
at
around
5:30 is the meet and greet, what we call cocktail hour, and then 6:30 is the actual event.
Yeah.
And it's a great opportunity for us to celebrate the community, celebrate the certain individuals or organizations giving back to the community.
Yeah.
And so this year we have a Spirit of Giving Award to recognize those givers.
Yeah.
So Sutter Health Foundation will be recognized for what they not only do for the Salvation Army,
Sure.
but all of Yuba-Sutter.
Yeah.
And then Sutter County's own Sarah Eberhardt Rios, the Director of Health and Human Services for this county, she'll be recognized with the award as well.
That's amazing.
So pretty excited about that. Also, we know that in order to do what we do, we have about 70 to 80 different partners. Some of it's contracted, some of it's a warm handshake with agencies. And so each year we recognize a different sector. So either it's law enforcement, first responders, education, or military.
Love it.
So this year is healthcare systems. And so we're going to be recognizing Adventist Health, Partnership Health Plan, Harmony Health, Ampla Health, and Peachtree Health with a Partner in Mission Award. So once again, great evening.
Yeah.
Come out with your spouse, friends, family, support the Salvation Army. We have this raffle that's out. I think the grand prize is
Louis Vuitton?
No, not this year. That was last year. I think it's a concert at Live Nation.
Yeah.
A night at Hard Rock and
Nice.
a dinner package, I believe. That's
at,
the top one.
at Council Oak.
Yeah.
And there's just so many ways to get involved with this event. So we all on the advisory board, we also have tickets for that raffle. So if you're watching this locally and you want to get involved, reach out to either Major or myself. And then beyond that, we also have, I think right now, we're at 15 or 16 tables sold of the goal being 30.
Correct.
So there's table opportunities for you and your business if you guys are wanting to get involved with.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Individual tickets are $75, and we have a few people who buy individual tickets in that way. So that's Rock the Red Kettle. It's going to be a good evening, good food, good networking, good friends, and of that nature. Like I said, that's the kickoff to the giving season.
Yeah.
We are looking for volunteers. That's another big push of ours.
Love it.
The Salvation Army cannot do what it does without a team of volunteers or an army of volunteers. Generally, in a given year, we have about 300 to 400 volunteers. Majority of them are coming to us at Christmas time.
Sure.
But we have a lot of opportunities throughout the year. But particularly at Christmas, we need volunteers to ring that bell. And so, for instance, our advisory board volunteers today. We have service clubs, Rotary, Kiwanis. They've already committed to give a full day of bell ringing at a certain store.
That's awesome.
We have the realtors, the Sutter Yuba Realtors Association. Several of those realtors come out and they bring out their family and their associates to bell ring for the Salvation Army. This year, it's on the first Friday of December. I don't have the date in mind, but
I think
It's amazing.
First Friday.
So we're looking for groups to volunteer, but then, I was one of those kids, once again, grew up in the Salvation Army that volunteered to ring that bell. And so, some parents might want to say, hey, we'll commit to 2 hours or 4 hours, bring their kid out. And people love kids and, they see their sweet little face and like, okay, I'll give to the Salvation Army.
Bro, you walk out of Sam's Club on a Saturday and it's just like me ringing a bell. You're like, meh. You see Beck, I'm like,
literally,
please give me money. You're like, oh my God, here, right? It works.
My wife takes our son out.
Yeah, that is the hint is to take kids out there. But it's so synonymous. And I think I spoke to this when I was originally brought onto the advisory board for Salvation Army, which I believe was either late 2018 or early 19. I had only ever really known of Salvation Army being bell ringing.
Yeah.
And it's synonymous with me now. Like I'm thinking of being very young and walking in or out of stores, whether it's J.C. Penney's or wherever, growing up and just hearing that bell, and then always kind of pairing that bell with the giving season and Christmas. But now, I mean, hindsight being 2020, you don't realize it until we're actively involved with these meetings and seeing how the Salvation Army is intimately involved with helping families through, be it homelessness or drug addiction or youth services, all throughout the year. Because that was one of the biggest, most eye-opening things for me. Because I always just thought Salvation Army equals bell ringing. Bell ringing is November, December, and you don't really know what the Salvation Army does outside of that. But the KKO, the opportunity we have on November 8th, I believe it is the kickoff to not only making Christmas happen for so many families locally, but that is, like you said, barometer. Yeah. The more we can intake right there, the more help we can get with that helps us do everything that we do. It helps the Salvation Army do everything they do locally. Yeah. That money isn't going to anywhere else. No. Right here in Yuba-Sutter counties, right back to those services to continue to help.
Well, you bring up a good point. So, most people, not say most people, there's a assumption that you have a international organization, national organization like the Salvation Army in your local community, and your money as I give, this is going to somewhere back east, or
it's going to Cincinnati
somewhere. Exactly,
wherever.
right. Yeah. And the truth of the matter is, no, our motto has always been and will continue to be, what's raised here stays here.
I love
it. And what the flip side of it is if the community at some points decides it doesn't want to support the Salvation Army, and that tells the Salvation Army that, okay, well, maybe the community doesn't need our services anymore.
Sure.
And so there are some cases where the Salvation Army will say, yeah, we'll kind of restructure, right?
Yeah.
We'll still serve that community, but in a smaller way, because the community is not supporting it in the way that it should.
It needs to be.
It needs to be to meet the needs. And so, and that's our model. They don't. Our headquarters doesn't necessarily fund us and say, well, we're going to give $1 million to Yuba to do his services. No, it's my job.
No, absolutely.
It's on my shoulders.
Yeah.
And our
if they're
advisory
watching
board
this
shoulders.
and they think that they should, we can.
That's funny.
It's our responsibility locally to support our local Salvation Army, because, we, unlike, let's take, for instance, let's say like the Red Cross. They're known for disaster services and giving blood.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Those are their two main activities. You can, wherever you go, where the Red Cross is at, which that's what you can find. With the Salvation Army, we're a lot different.
Yeah.
When we go to a community, we assess what's in that community. What are your needs? And then we build the Salvation Army off of that.
Which is amazing.
Yeah, so if you go to Sacramento, you're not going to find the same program that you have in Yuba. If you go to LA, you're definitely not going to find, it's based on the community's needs.
It's awesome.
The mission of the local Salvation Army.
So if somebody, let's say somebody from, I don't know, Milwaukee's listening to this thing and they're like, I want to like totally help out in my local community, how would they go to their salvation? How would they go through that process? Walk through the door and say, hey, I'd like to volunteer?
Literally. Or we are national website, salvationarmyusa.org. I believe that's our national website. I don't use it often, but that's the other way. And you put in your zip code and it will bring up your local Salvation Army. And we have branding wise, like have one main web page that just can trickle down to all the way down to let's say Yuba.
Yeah.
And so
Awesome, man. Well, if you're listening to this and you're like, how can I involve myself in the community? How can I give back? Look into what Salvation Army is doing. Like, I highly recommend it because I don't think I didn't even know, because my brain went, okay, they're helping with people dealing with homelessness and they're ringing the bell. But when you're like, no, you're dealing with people in tons of traumatic situations, different walks of life, and even your story. If you feel like you want to give back and you want to help out in your community, look up a local, find your Salvation Army, because that stays there. It's not going out to somewhere and getting shipped back in. It stays where you're at.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on.
Also want to note, there's been the Salvation Army is also known for disaster services.
Yes.
Locally, we've had our own local natural disasters, campfire and other local disasters over the years. And so we respond to those situations. And so, yes, the Salvation Army is responding to the survivors and first responders back in the Southeast with the effects of the hurricanes that have come through over the last month. And if you want to, as you're looking at the news and you're trying to decide, hey, which organization to give to, you might want to consider the Salvation Army. The beauty of that is when you give to a natural disaster like that, but for the Salvation Army, your funds, your resources go to support only that disaster.
So good.
And so and the other things to note is that the Salvation Army is not just there for when the cameras are on. The Salvation Army is not just there for the first 5 days or 2 weeks. The Salvation Army is long term.
Absolutely.
So we provide that long term care. I'm confident that it wasn't until in recent years where we stopped providing, and they're probably still doing it, but I can't say with authority. But I do know within the last few years, they finally tapered off some of the Hurricane Katrina. Because once again, we're there long term. And then let's say nationally, the Salvation Army raised $5 million for Hurricane Helene or whatever. That $5 million can only be spent on relief efforts for that particular disaster. Yeah. And so just to think, as you consider nonprofits to support in that, might consider the Salvation Army.
Yeah. And the amount of oversight and guidance and allocation of that money is huge, because there's that kind of thing in the back of your mind. If you give to an organization, you're like,
if I give
wonder
$1,
how much that salary pays, or da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Salvation Army, like literally looking at their books, especially locally, like watching this money, because it just got allocated to here, and this money getting allocated here. There's seeing those books. I mean, the looking past the curtain, having the ability on the advisory board to look past the curtain and seeing how that money is allocated. Yeah, it gives me peace knowing how well the Salvation Army specifically properly allocates that money in a God-fearing way to the services that most need it. And that's a huge factor why I'm such a believer in Salvation Army.
Amen.
I love you, man. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you for the opportunity. You got to have me back.
Yeah,
we will absolutely have you back.
This was fun.
It was fun. Cut! Thank you for checking out the Cam and Joe Show.
If you guys are liking our content so far, you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram. You can also listen to us on Spotify.